Welcome to the Sojourn Wealth Management Podcast. My name is Jeff Bronner, and I'm joined by Corey Akins. Today, we're going to be talking about another area of our firm's expertise, individuals who work in the field of healthcare. Corey, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Jeff. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm excited to talk about this specialty. I know that there's a number of folks that we work with in this field, and there are just a lot of different challenges and just unique opportunities there. And so I'm excited to unpack it with you.
It's an interesting kind of field of career, and there's a lot of nuance and a lot of different directions you can go. So I love it, and I'm looking forward to discussing it with you.
Well, let's dive in. So let's start with the unique financial challenges that healthcare professionals face, and how do we tailor our advice to help them through that?
Yeah, so I would say because most people who go to school for a career in the healthcare world are going to have longer kind of timelines as far as being in school, gathering expertise, getting degrees, things like that. The delay in starting kind of your like full-time settled position comes later than a lot of other folks. And so it compresses the time for starting savings. So like if you're a physician, you may go undergrad and then med school and then residency. And then finally, okay, you're kind of out of this 7 to 10 year period where you're learning and kind of getting your feet under you. Mm-hmm. And so that's around 29 or 30 as far as age. And so that's a little later in the game. And so it kind of compresses that time for savings. And so I think that's a unique challenge, and starting early is impactful there. The other thing is just the stress of long hours. The position itself can be challenging. And so when you compound that with financial stress, it can culminate into a real uphill climb that really does not get addressed for years, just because people are trying to get settled, trying to get acclimated to kind of what this career is going to be. And it's a lot of times it's challenging. Healthcare is challenging. And so I think that can be another thing that is a key factor. And then obviously student loans. Most people coming into that career, are coming into it with student loan debt. And typically it's going to be higher than your normal student loan liability. And so I think that's a key factor. We're going to unpack that a little bit more later, but that one is certainly a challenge. And then, just the connotations that come with being typically a higher earner as it relates to lifestyle. So say you go to school for 7 to 10 years, you get out, now you've got the career, you're making, relative to others, a lot of money. And there are certain kind of connotations that come with that. Whereas, the big house, the new car, all of those things kind of are creeping at the door, so to speak. And I think that that's a unique challenge, just not necessarily with like the job itself, but kind of what the job and the career allows for, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And that can be amplified by what you were talking about initially, which is you have this extended amount of time you're in school, you are working really hard to get to the point where you're actually in your career years, you're doing your job as a physician in whatever capacity that might be. And now it's like, okay, I've earned this kind of mentality. And one of the things we've talked about in prior conversations is how, making sure that when you're in residency and you're finishing up these things where, you have a decent income, but you're about to step into finishing your residency, and then whether it be going to a fellowship or starting as a hospitalist or whatever it might be, you're gonna make a big jump in income.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure that the financial disposition, the goals, and our attitudes towards spending are in check before we have that. Because I think the way we've conceptualized it is, you can't earn your way out of a bad habit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that jump in income creates challenges in and of itself, because it can limit you from options that kind of most people have, right? And so we'll talk a little bit about that. But
let's circle back. I want to hear more of your thoughts on the student loans, and then we'll get into some of that stuff with how the income affects opportunity.
Yeah.
So, obviously, a lot of folks graduate from medical school, they go into their residency, they have a lot of student debt by the time that they graduate and finish school altogether. how do we navigate managing that high amount of debt with starting the career, already missing a big window of opportunity to save in the 20s? How do we navigate that?
Yeah. So a lot of folks get out of school and it can become a really big emotional attachment as far as the student debt goes. And so I've had people say, I am not doing anything until I get this paid off. Like I don't want to put any dollar towards anything other than this student debt because it's such a burden.
Yeah.
And I would just say, let's not do that like right out of the gate, because if you do that, one, you're going to be compressing the time that you can save even more. So like you get out at 30 or into your career at 30, you pay off student loans for the next 10 years, and then you start saving for retirement. You just lost 10 years of compound interest that you could have had. So that's not really a good kind of mindset to come out of school with. I think what is better is doing both. You have to save and reduce debt, because that's going to flip your net worth faster from a balance sheet perspective.
Yeah.
And so, like, think of this example. You come out of school with $200,000 in debt. Like, you start paying that off and you're saving into your 401k or whatever it is. You're going to get to a net zero on the net worth scale quicker, even if you still have some debt. So you pay off $100,000 in 5 years, but you saved $100,000 in 5 years. Now your net worth is at zero. So in that very basic example, that's kind of how we think of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And to kind of summarize that, you're saying don't take a dogmatic approach to just attacking debt. Now, as far as the ditches go, it would be better to have an aggressive, I'm going to pay off this debt, than I'm not even going to think about this debt. There are competing errors there. So we would rather, let's take care of that. But what you're saying is, let's think more strategically, more specifically about how we can. And another thing that gets to as well is one of the greatest tools in saving for retirement is time.
Yes.
And so you're able to, and you have greater just default risk tolerance. You're able to seek more growth the younger you are. So that $100,000 you're talking about, you're going to be able to see more growth out of that than if you had started that at 40.
Yeah.
Just from a sheer time horizon perspective.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, it's just math. The more time that you have in the market, the better. And I mentioned this a second ago, but like, don't get emotionally attached to it. It is the thing that, okay, you have student loan debt. It was an opportunity. It was utilized as an opportunity for you to have the career that you have. So take advantage of that. Attack it and save. Like, we don't want you eating rice and beans and burning firewood in the winter to stay warm, right? So like, you want to you don't want to be dogmatic in one way or the other. We want to have a contented kind of personality when it comes to attacking the debt, but also realizing like that's not the end all be all. So another thing with that is the PSLF, right? So if you're going to be kind of at a public hospital, the public service loan forgiveness program allows you to, 10 years, if you get kind of in the system and make those 120 payments, then they get forgiven at the end of those 10 years. That's a key point, but a lot of people don't take advantage of it because they get rejected because the application's not right or something like that. Yeah. And so, that's a key thing to just explore those options, and we can help explore those options, but understanding that early is key.
Yeah. And even before you graduate, this just gets to the point of, we want to be thinking through these things substantively before we get to the point where now we're making those decisions.
That's exactly right.
So we mentioned earlier how income can impact opportunity as far as investments go. What strategies do you recommend for healthcare professionals to balance the demanding careers, the income limitations that are imposed upon different opportunities when it comes to retirement planning?
Yeah. So prioritizing saving early. So it's, we've talked about this before, but the pitfalls that affect a lot of people are not uncommon to those who earn higher incomes.
Right.
So if you spend a lot of money, if you spend all your income when you make $60,000, you're probably going to spend most of your income when you make $260,000. So I would say like developing that muscle of discipline and saying early on, like, hey, when I do get to the point where I've kind of reached what I want to reach from a career perspective and now it's starting, I'm going to be disciplined to save early, get a plan in place, not try to keep up with the Joneses, right? Like that is a pitfall common to a lot of people, and a lot of people, especially, in healthcare with higher incomes and things like that. Maybe you don't need the new Lexus or the brand new house with 4,000 square feet, because those things can have the appearance of wealth, but true wealth is setting yourself up for down the road where you're going to have enough to live on and live comfortably. And so, not to say you can't have those things. Those things are great.
But we're more concerned with security than we are with the appearance of wealth.
And nice things aren't wealth, right? Like you can have a lot of nice things, but that's not true wealth. So
maybe to clarify, specify, we want our clients to be able to enjoy those things.
Yeah.
It's not as if we were saying that those things are inherently bad, but we want them to be able to make those decisions and enjoy those things without any sort of compulsion towards, can I afford this, or is this a good decision, or anything like that?
Not at the expense of your future self. Right. So like if that is going to be a detriment to like retired Jeff down the road, then that's where I would say we got to develop that discipline. The other thing is utilizing key strategies like Roth conversions, early on, mega backdoor Roth conversions. So just to unpack that a little bit, if your 401k plan allows it, you can contribute the maximum. And then to keep things very simple, you have up to $70,000 that you and the employer can make contributions to in a year. That above and beyond the maximum is going to be a after-tax contribution. And so you take that after-tax contribution and you roll it right into the Roth IRA. And we mentioned earlier, when you jump in income, typically you phase out of having a Roth IRA. And so what this allows you to do is have that Roth IRA, make contributions to it through the 401k space, and then you could, realistically roll in upwards of $30,000-$40,000 to the Roth each year, and that's going to be tax free down the road.
So the workplace accounts being one of the initial places where high income earners can still qualify to take advantage of some of the tax advantaged retirement accounts, and you're phased out of the individual retirement account. So what other strategies outside of the workplace? Let's say someone wants to save more, right? They've hit the maximum into their workplace. What do they do next?
Yeah. So maximum in the workplace, if your plan allows you to do that backdoor Roth conversion, let's do that. And then there are 3 areas that I think provide extra or additional savings. So a brokerage account, just kind of a standard after-tax account that you put money into. It grows with the market, and then when you take money out, it's taxed at capital gains rates. So those are going to be more favorable than income tax. So typically, the
growth in the account.
Yeah. That's right. So any growth on the account that you take out, you pay capital gains on, but those are favorable. Like you have, as a married filing joint couple, you've got up to $98,000 or something like that this year, and then 15% from that to like over $500,000, right? So very, very favorable.
From a relative perspective, capital gains rates are usually, or they're always lower than your income rates.
And so that's good. A non-qualified deferred annuity is another way. So you put money in, it grows tax deferred. So it earns 10% every year for the next 40 years. You don't pay any taxes on that interest until you take that money out. Then it's taxed at ordinary income. The benefit there is that you're typically earning more in your working years. You take the non-qualified deferred annuity money out in your retirement years, you're going to be taxed at a lower rate on that interest than if you had been taxed on it in your working years. And then lastly, I would say is permanent life insurance. And before people throw their theoretical stones at me or proverbial stones at me, I get it. I think we've all kind of encountered the whole life insurance salesman who is just, wanting to sell you a whole life.
People have a bad taste in their mouth towards,
And I came from that space. So I'm very sympathetic to that because, most people don't need permanent life insurance. However, it is a tool that can be used to put money in, and it grows tax deferred. And then you always get your money that you've put in out first, and that's tax free.
Mm-hmm.
So over the course of 20, 30 years as a high income earner, you put money in, and then say you turn 53 and you want to work part-time and you need some money to kind of bridge that gap of what you're used to, you can start taking money out of the life insurance policy totally tax-free if done right. And that's a great way to bridge the gap. It also dovetails into something else. If you are a high earner in healthcare, your Social Security benefit is going to be maxed out at $176 for 2025. So what does that mean? That means that every dollar past $176,000 is not going to count towards your percentage that you get back from Social Security when you retire. So if you make $300,000, almost half your income is not going to your Social Security base. So that means that the onus is going to be more on you to make up that income in retirement. Whereas somebody who doesn't have that, we'll say in air quotes, problem is getting a bigger proportion to their income from Social Security, if that makes sense. So I would just say there's a lot of components there, but it's important to navigate them.
Yeah, and I appreciate it's hard to really, in a short amount of time like we have right now, to unpack how all of these strategies will overlap. But if we were to summarize some of the things, there's just unique life cycle when it comes to healthcare professionals. They're going to have a longer academic life cycle, a shorter career life cycle, and then they're going to want to be in a position where they can retire with confidence on their time.
And typically going to need more money to do so.
Right. And the income just provides just some obstacles as far as opportunities. But all that to say, just this little snapshot is to say there are strategies that can be utilized to overcome the problems. I believe
air quote problems, right?
Yeah, a wise person once said, "More money, more problems." So we want to help folks navigate those effectively.
Yeah. And one key thing I didn't mention too is disability insurance. So for like highly specialized people who maybe like a brain surgeon or something, their income is subject to them performing those duties, and you've got to use a lot of things: your eyes, your hands. There's a lot of components that go into you being able to earn that money. And so I've heard it said your greatest asset is your ability to earn an income, which is pretty true. So protecting that, so like you add a disability policy on top of your long-term disability at work, and then it will help bridge as much of that gap in case, Lord forbid something did happen and you were out of work.
And that's a great point that we always want to emphasize with clients is holistic financial planning is not just about long-term planning, but it's about managing risk short-term and long-term. So I appreciate you bringing up that point as well. Well, Corey, thank you so much for just taking time to unpack this. I know that this is again, a unique field with its own challenges, and it's always exciting to get to review the different strategies with you.
Absolutely. I appreciate it, Jeff. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Sojourn Wealth Management Podcast. This is a friendly reminder that all content in this podcast is intended for educational purposes alone. Nothing in this episode should be treated as tax, legal, or investment advice. We encourage you to consult your financial professional for any of those needs. Securities offered through Kestra Investment Services, LLC, Kestra IS, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Kestra Advisory Services, LLC, Kestra AS, an affiliate of Kestra IS. Kestra IS or Kestra AS are not affiliated with Sojourn Wealth Management, LLC.